Hi, this is Moby. Welcome to The Fire Show. Welcome back to The Fire Show, the podcast from Austin about entrepreneurship, business strategy, and working your face off. This is your host, Moby. Alright, so today, I'm bringing to you the second panel I recorded at the Fund Conference in April. Brought to Austin for the first time ever by Fund Conference, Deloitte, Wilson Sonsini, and Entrepreneur Network. In the first panel that we had a few episodes ago, we had investors and entrepreneurs such as Samit and BackGril Ventures, among many others, talk about how to meet investors, how to make an impression, and eventually raise capital for your company. In this panel, we have a slightly different focus. That is investing and venture capital, that ecosystem in our state of Texas. What problems do Texas entrepreneurs face in this area? Why is there a perception of having to go to the East Coast or the West Coast for money? What are investors and people with wealth around us, around in Texas, looking for in tech entrepreneurs that they can't find here? I mean, Texas has no shortage of money. Where is it going to? How do we drive it towards tech and startups and people that actually need it right now to build companies that will affect their local communities and cities and state and the U.S. and the world? So we're talking about that. And we've got a great line of panelists. They do introduce themselves before they speak, but I just want to give a run through of who's on there. We have Bob Metcalfe, creator of the Ethernet cable, the thing that we all use for the internet. He was also on the Tim Ferriss show recently. That was super cool. We also have Paul O'Brien, founder of Media Tech Ventures, a company that you've heard me mention multiple times probably. Joe Merrill and Amanda Eakin from Sputnik ATX, and Martin Martinez from Founders Institute, among some more. This panel was live streamed on the Entrepreneur Network and shared to multiple pages and to an audience of more than 4 million people. That was super cool. A huge shout out to the Fund Conference and Media Tech Ventures for helping me set up this panel. Thank you for everyone who was on there. And if you want to come to the next Fund Conference, it's in October 24th and 25th in Chicago. And if you're there, we can chat because I will be there live streaming the hell out of panels, interviewing people, and just enjoying Chicago before it gets super, super cold. Ladies and gents, enjoy. Hello. Hi, Facebook. Hello. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Fund Conference in Austin, Texas. The first time it's happening in Austin, Texas. In Texas. Where my Texas at? Woo! Woo! Yeah. We're not proud at all. We're humble people. Everything's small in Texas. Anyway, we're super excited, super grateful that Entrepreneur Network let us be on here live. We're super grateful for Deloitte for allowing and sponsoring this conference. And I'm joined by quite a few wonderful people. We're going to have an informal conversation about what's happening in investing in Texas right now. What's the venture capital economy right now? And just have some fun. What do you guys say?
Right on. Yes.
Sweet. Okay. So the first question, I'm going to throw this out there, and you can say your name and what you do quickly, and just whoever jumps up. As an entrepreneur, when is the right time for me to be ready for investing, for an investment into my company?
Yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday.
Why?
Unequivocally, hands down, period,
Okay.
End of discussion. Paul O'Brien, run a company called Media Tech Ventures, kind of why we're doing this and having fun. Yesterday, because if you have any intention of ever raising capital, you should be talking to the people who can put it into your business before you even start to figure out what you're going to do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand how that works. You got to understand what they're going to be looking for. You've got to appreciate what kind of exit or at what stage or how they might get their return back, so that you can design a startup, you can design a business that's kind of tailored to that source of funding. Right? A lot of different ways to get money. Venture capital in particular, since that was the question, does have a certain set of expectations and requirements and things that they go through as a part of funding businesses.
I disagree with Paul.
You're allowed to. Yes, that's correct. I think so.
I'm Bob Metcalfe at the University of Texas.
I was disagreeing with my boss.
Zoom on that.
And this morning he made it clear that he's Irish.
Here.
Pat O'Brien.
Alas, I am only a quarter Irish. So, yeah. I don't think you start a company until you know something.
Oh, fair.
This is not exactly a disagreement.
All right, sure.
You have to know something, and too many people think they want to start a company, but they don't know anything, and you have to know something. So one of the reasons I've shifted my emphasis at UT from student startups to professor startups is professors know stuff. And by the way, professors come with students, so you're not exactly giving up on the students.
Yeah.
So I'm just making perhaps a refinement on your point. You got to know something.
Fantastic.
But he makes a really good point, because you have to be a maker, right? You have to actually know what you're making, or what are you doing, right? I mean, one of the worst things that, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to overly generalize, but like we've all seen like a million pitches of a couple of MBA students who want some money so they can hire engineers to make it, and you never want to fund that, right? But you have to be. I mean, it does. And maybe you're an engineer, maybe you're a programmer. Maybe you're a product designer, but you got to be the person who knows what they're doing. You have to bring a hard skill to the table.
Yep, unequivocally, yeah. And that does rather affirm my point. I might distinguish it by suggesting that I'm not encouraging that you pitch investors.
You're just saying
before you start.
To them.
But you should absolutely know who the local investors are. You should absolutely know who the investors in your industry are. And just reach out to them and start a conversation, because investors are partners, right? We're looking for a relationship with you as an entrepreneur and as a startup founder. The best place that starts is having a cup of coffee and just saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What does that look like for you guys?
I'd like to add into a lot of those different pieces. Steve Gilman, co-founder and COO of Block Party, entertainment startup out of Dallas. What happens when you want to start a business is you start crafting a business plan, and you have to know something, and you have to make progress, and you have to have the investors ready. Mm-hmm. Well, in order to shape the business plan, it's about those around you, about your team, it's about the market, it's about the research. It's also about getting feedback from the investors. Whether they invest or not, these are the folks that are looking at businesses every day, like yours, similar to yours, and likely have succeeded in helping to grow, if not have exited themselves out of businesses similar to yours. So part of that business plan process is not siloed. It's working with the investors to figure out what makes sense. Maybe one day they'll invest. Maybe one day you'll just be in the pipeline for some of their partner investors.
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about what entrepreneurs should do when it comes to investing. Let's talk about what people actually see. So Amanda, Martine, Joe, you've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, like you guys have too, but right now you're running Sputnik and Founders Institute. When people come in to your programs, are they at the point of, do they have that fallacy, which is, I only have an idea, but I want funding right now. My idea is worth funding at this point.
I think I see them a lot more often than Joe and Amanda, is because we're so idea stage. You know, some people just come with a cocktail napkin sketch, and others may have something that they're tinkering with. You know, they're in no way, shape, or form should they be looking for VC funding at any point in time at that. We want to make sure that they're polished on that. Where the tricky thing is like, how do you get them to that point? How do you, depending on if they have something they're tinkering with, or they just have that cocktail napkin sketch, how do you prepare them when we get them out the door to actually engage VCs in a meaningful way?
Well, you want to get them to a full-size dinner napkin.
Yes, full plate. You want the Thanksgiving table just lined up like this.
Sometimes a table sheet depends.
At least that. At least you want some of the main courses already served. You might not have the sides yet if we're going to keep with Thanksgiving metaphors. But it's important that you're prepping them for that, and also that you're getting them really comfortable to pitch 1,000 different times to 1,000 different people, possibly 1,000 different ways, but you're still invoking that same reaction out of that person in the end, because you truly believe in what you're doing and how it's going to solve problems, meaningful problems, and probably make money. Hopefully it's going to make money too. But yeah, that's where I'm seeing. It's just making sure that you're comfortable actually in your own shoes and being able to articulate that vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's why collaboration is so important for people like us, so that people like Martine and Founders Institute will take these ideas and they know the next step, like an accelerator like ours afterward, and they can help entrepreneurs build out their ideas that will be appropriate for the next people.
I think there's two things you need to know. If you're first thinking about starting a company and you're asking yourself, okay, what about funding? And the first is that there's many different sources of funding, if you're a proto company or you're thinking like there's different people who specialize in that. So don't come talk to me if you're doing the napkin, because that's not what we do. We require a minimum viable product and a customer. So if you come to me with an idea, you're wasting my time. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just that you're not what I do, right? But Founders Institute, that is what they do. You should be talking to them, and they're really good at what they do. In fact, we get deal flow from things like this. I mean, we're looking at the people coming out from them because we trust them. We know they do a good job. So make sure you're talking to the right people who are at the right stage or the right industry for what you're doing. And the other thing that I just think is it's kind of almost a joke and a cliche is you hear people say if you ask for advice you'll get funding, and if you ask for funding you'll get advice. That's really true. And so when you meet somebody and they're a VC or an angel or whatever, ask them for advice, right?
And then you'll get money, right?
Well, yes, but the people who like what you're doing will offer it, right? And if you ask for enough advice from enough people who do provide funding, you'll also find out faster if what you're doing really doesn't make sense. And you can save yourself a lot of time and heartbreak too, right?
That is absolutely an accurate phrase. You always have those conversations at even conferences where you're meeting somebody, you're shaking somebody's hand like at the one conference, and they just come right out with, well, I'm looking for $500,000. Do you know anybody I should talk to here? And I pause and think, I don't know how to help you
because
no
one here.
I don't know anything about what you're doing, and I don't know what you're struggling with, and I don't know. You always got to lead with. But again, that partnership, that desire to learn something, to know something, so that you can develop a business that's fundable or at least sustainable, right, and successful.
Let's change some levers. So we're in Texas right now, and on Entrepreneur Network, right? We have a bunch of people watching. Comment below where you are right now, because we're curious. A lot of people have seen in headlines all over the U.S. and possibly outside too for years, which is Austin's the #1 place to live in the U.S. And there's also an interesting stat, which is Austin has the highest number of businesses per capita, but we don't hear a lot about investing in Texas. It's great that we have fund brought by Deloitte and Entrepreneur Network, but what's happening in Texas right now that's really exciting for the entrepreneurs that need that collaboration and need to be put into funnels that will eventually lead them to funding? What's exciting in the venture capital economy?
So there's this image of a big tree falls in the forest, and then the next spring little seedlings start growing up out of the stump, out of this old log. Well, I arrived 7 years ago as Austin Ventures. It was growing like this. And now the seedlings are springing up, and we saw them on stage this morning. We saw several of them. So that's a happening thing in Austin. The seedlings, the True Wealth and the New Coast and the Next Gen, they're all coming up now. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, great analogy. The one I like to use is actually a reference to a Sputnik accelerator or an incubator, the Founder Institute. Austin right now, to me, is kind of like an incubator. We've got incredibly creative people in this part of the world, and a lot of countries and people paying attention, moving into Austin. It's I told a story a long time ago in an article that we're essentially like the new world for entrepreneurs, right? We got a lot of people leaving other cities, other parts of the world where they're maybe fleeing the old way that things were done. They're fleeing the old religion, right? And they're coming into places like Austin. They're coming into Texas, and so we're at this almost rebirth of how the ecosystem or the economy works. I think by way of here, we're at the incubator stage, and we're maturing into the accelerator stage because we're starting to see entrepreneurs who've done it a couple of times. We're starting to see companies like WP Engine and Big Commerce here just recently, to name a few. I think Dosh even today got funded.
Got funded today?
Raising substantial amounts of money, right? Wow. And so we're starting to now accelerate things locally. And then, you use that analogy, you come out of the accelerator stage, and what happens? Then we operate some exceptional companies for a while, and then we put wealth back into the ecosystem. And not rinse and repeat, right? But then we start to have venture funds locally because the wealth is there to sustain much more substantial growth with the companies that we've got in Texas. That's why I'm excited to be here. Because, it's these seedlings popping up. I just think of it as an incubator stage. This is the incubator for the world as far as I'm concerned with regard to innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship today.
That's not a high opinion of the city you live in?
No, because I'm Texan now.
So you're Texan now. Okay. Wait, how long has everyone been in Texas? 7 years?
7 years.
7 years.
7 generations.
7
Generations. Goodness.
Been a while.
And-
Family blood's been all over. I got like Comanche blood or something.
Coming up on 2 years.
Only up 2 years.
New blood.
25 years.
There you go. 9. It'll be 9 in October.
And I'm just 2 years.
Oh, okay, sweet.
2 years in Dallas.
2 years in Dallas.
Okay.
But you see, the naturalized Texans are way more loyal because we chose this.
Yeah.
You were just lucky.
You opted in.
Right? Some of us had to work to get here.
That's right. I like that.
So the working, I like that you use that word. So thing that some people have heard in communities in Texas is, in the startup communities, that if you're looking to raise money, and this is what we've heard, you'll have to go outside of Texas. Is that true? Why or why not? To an
You're in
extent.
the process, yeah?
So we've raised, we've had the ability to raise from the East Coast, New York City, from Los Angeles, the West Coast, and we have a lot of great investors in Austin, Dallas area. And the way we saw that coming together is because we're based in Dallas. If a New York City investor wants to invest alongside an LA investor, we're taking flights back and forth, and we can be in either city in 3 hours. So we started to see a flow of that, as well as some investment come out of Texas. And we've had the ability to see and go through a bunch of different stages in the past 4 years that we've been going. So as they were talking about where does your company fit in the process, spend your time focusing on those groups. They're going to exist all over the country, but you're seeing them spring up more and more in the southern region here in Texas, and so you don't have to look outside as much. You may for different parts of your funding rounds, but it's all coming together. It's getting a little more flat than it used to be 3 or 4 years ago.
There's this economic principle called thick markets, right? Where the more you get a concentration of certain industries in one place, the cheaper it is for companies to operate. Venture capital is one of those industries where thick markets exist. And Silicon Valley reached a critical phase for that before almost any other place in the world did. And there's also diminishing returns to capital. And you're seeing that in Silicon Valley now as well, where there's such a concentration of capital there. I just came back from the Bay Area this week, and every firm I talked to there said, hey, if you guys are investing in stuff, let us know, because it's so burned over and it's so competitive in the Valley now that it's really hurting returns. And so, can you raise money in Texas? Sure. And there's quite a bit of money here in Texas. But to your point, companies from outside of Texas want to invest here. They're coming here. They're looking for companies. We're going to be hosting an event next month with some Silicon Valley firms that want to come here looking for companies to invest in that are here. And so I think the thick market is here already. There's enough capital here that it's self-sustainable. It's only going to continue to improve the economics in Austin, and it'll only continue to get better. So, we're pretty bullish on Austin, obviously, but I think that there's good economic fundamentals to that justify what we're seeing.
It's a great point. There are 3 facts. If you just look at the numbers with regard to Texas capital, there are 3 facts. We have some of the largest angel networks in the world.
Yep.
So we've got that seed stage really covered. We've got the passion from investors who want to participate, want to get involved, want to support things. Fact number 1. Fact number 2, we got big companies and private equity firms with lots of money putting it into R&D, and we've got programs at the university systems that are driving a lot of that as well. So bottom end of the funnel, top end of the funnel as far as capital is concerned, tons of money. And then you got a lot of wealth on the sidelines. We do have a ton of money in Texas. And it is kind of on the sidelines, though, because I think it almost ties a bow around that idea of the fact that before we do anything, we have to know. And to be frank, it's that investors need to know, too, right? They need to know how to support these technologies. They need to know how they work, frankly. If you grew up working at Google and then Facebook, you just kind of understand that stuff, and so it's easier to write a check for it. If you grew up putting holes in the ground to pump oil, there's a transition that we have to make.
Texas has more accredited investors than any other state, and it is because of the oil industry. And these people have a lot of money. But in defense of these oil guys, putting holes in the ground is an engineering discipline, and they are engineers. And so you can go to them if you're a maker and show them what you're doing, and they're smart and they get it.
Well, absolutely.
But to your point, the trick is it's not the technology they have to learn; it's the process of term sheets and what's fair, how you value an early stage company. The oil guys don't know that. That's not an engineering talent. That's something that I think we have to be better at training people so that they can be cross-functional between oil investing and tech investing.
Well, to be
That's
frank,
lingo for tech investing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like the whole process of investing in a business that is not capital intensive is different than capital intensive businesses. Because in oil, you're giving money for assets, and it's very straightforward. Mm-hmm. When you're investing in something that's intangible and people are coding or developing, it's a different business to learn.
Very, very true when we look at it just through that tech lens. And I think part of my encouragement of us is that arguably the better part of making a startup successful is the market development, the marketing, the sales development, customer development. Less so, and I'm saying that knowing that people aren't going to like me saying it, but it's actually less so the tech, right? That what you're doing requires an understanding of how to develop that market, and how to develop the customers for that, and how to build a business model around it. And it is a bigger leap, to be frank, between somebody who's wealthy because they've been in ag tech, moving cattle up in North Texas, and they got a lot of money, to then say, hey, now develop the marketing with us, help us fund the market development for a mobile app for daily deals, right? Yeah. They're two completely different worlds. Yeah. And it's not a criticism, it's just an observation that there's a knowledge transition there.
And we need to be better at helping bridge that gap.
Folks through. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you see the movie Giant, which is about the transition of Texas from a cattle-based economy to an oil-based economy.
Yeah.
So now we just need to remake Giant as a transition from an oil-based economy to a tech-based economy.
Let's produce the film.
And I see the volunteer right here. We have our first volunteer at the University of Texas. Yes.
Texas.
Can I be Elizabeth Taylor's husband?
Which one?
It would be the 9th.
So changing the levers one more time. We talked about this in the last discussion. What's one thing when people are actually ready, when they know what they're talking about, when they've had some discussions with the investment community, and they come to you and talk about, hey, I'm looking for some money. What's a big red flag that you see very often, that you want to tell people who are listening, hey, don't do this, or think about how to get around this obstacle when you're talking to investors? Hard questions, that's what I get paid.
Interesting questions. Here's my biggest obstacle. Most people have a tendency to approach you and want to explain right away what it is and how it works.
Yeah.
And you're a startup, so I have every expectation that that's incorrect by design. I mean, that's kind of the nature of being a startup. That you may want it to be that, and you may think it should be that, and that may be how it will work. But at this stage, what I think is much more critical is that you come to these folks and you explain why first, right? Yeah. Why there's an opportunity, why the problem solution statement isn't just there's a problem and here's a solution, but it's that here's a problem, I think I have a solution, and there's an opportunity in our addressing that together. And then you talk about who, right? Who it's for, who cares, why this person as an investor is relevant. You also talk about who you're working with, right? I've got these other folks helping me with this, and we've got some experience, we've got some passion for this, we understand this.
And we're trying to figure it out.
And then I'm curious, because I know you're passionate, I know you get it, I know you care, I know you're committed, I know you got some folks that understand it, and so then I can inquire, how do you think that's going to work? Yeah. How might we solve that? What do you need in terms of capital, right? Yeah. Then we can probe for how the investors get involved, and frankly, too, whether or not they should, right? Maybe you don't need investment.
Yeah.
We can uncover it that way.
So, Amanda, you see startups every day, and so do you guys, all of you. Is that something you see, that kind of whole methodology of answering every single question that he has? That's a lot of questions, by the way.
Well, yes.
Yes.
I was actually thinking yesterday, we were at the Investing in Women conference. Yeah. And it's so much more effective when you start by explaining the problem. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't understand the problem, then I don't understand why it's necessary to have a solution. And so I kind of like to make the comparison between entrepreneurship and science a lot, because a lot of us at Sputnik come from science. And
poetry.
Yeah. So if you come at it like a scientist and you think of it like a hypothesis, and this is what I think, and this is what I think will work, and we're testing to find a solution, and come at it with that curiosity, then I think that's a good approach.
Which kind of ties into what he was saying.
Yeah,
we have a problem, and we're figuring out the solution, and hey, this might be a chance for you to make money.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts?
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah. I mean, tell them all the time.
Like,
Yes.
don't be a jerk.
That's the hard part.
Joe puts it very nicely. He's done this in some talks I've said. It's like, VCs are people too.
Yeah,
it's always stuck with me.
Don't be a jerk.
Be nice.
I'm stunned. People think we're evil, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I have friends.
You're sitting on a pile of money and you're a capitalist.
That's all I do is write checks. All I am.
And
Money.
honestly, I see like people raising money, and they're so rude.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just like, whoa, dude, back off. And we had a company that we had finished everything. We had just the final documents, and it was signing day. It was a seed investment of $400,000, which isn't a huge check, but for a seed round, it's significant. And it was the day we were supposed to sign. We came into work, and we have both the early stage, but we also have some later stage and even buyout, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a company that we had a $20 million investment in, that we had a banking crisis that morning. Where we had to get a line of credit secured for them. Mm-hmm. And it was just a last-minute, unexpected emergency. These things happen. We had 8 hours to fix it. We were completely focused on that. And this guy just started calling us, and he had our cell phones. And he called my partner 7 times in a row. He called me 10 times in a row. And we're on speakerphone talking to these bankers about this thing, and my phone keeps clicking. And they're like, is there something? Is there a problem? No, we're good. We're texting him, please stop calling us. And finally, I got on the phone with him, and I just said, deal's off.
Oh, wow.
We said, no way. If this is how you behave, there's no way we're going to put money into you. Because you're not being respectful of our time. And we have a much bigger problem we're dealing with. I've been texting you, telling you, please wait, we'll get back to you at 2 o'clock. And you couldn't wait. No.
It's a partnership, right?
Yeah.
And a partnership never starts well with somebody who's trying to take on too much of that relationship.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah.
So this morning we heard, remember the VCs were sitting there, and the question was, how do we do business with you? And they said, well, it'll take 3 to 5 months, and then you do this, and then you do that. I'd like to argue for a half a second. Maybe the entrepreneurs need to explain to the VCs how to do business with them.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, so
the big the big players, the serious ones, the people know what they're doing, and they're not being jerks. I'm not advocating jerkacy.
No one's advocating jerkacy.
But the big players, they have an idea of how they're going to raise money, and they'll share it with you. Like we want to raise this much money. We want to close in January. We want to have a syndicate which has a strategic in it, or 2 strategics and 1 financial, and they have an idea of what they want the financing to look like. So that's sort of the VCs learning how to do business with the company. It's the flip side of that.
Yeah. And I think that, just as you have a vision for how you want to grow the operation, you need to have that same vision for how you're going to finance the company. Yep. And neglecting to do that is a mistake. And neglecting to manage investor expectations, by helping them to see that vision also is a mistake. And one of the problems that we see sometimes is like capital-intensive investors who don't understand that it's going to be capital-intensive, right? But if you've thought it through and you're like, hey, this is going to be capital-intensive, then you'll be more realistic about valuation early on, and then maybe investing early in a capital stage fund makes sense. Whereas if you don't understand that about what you're going to do, you haven't thought about it, well, now you can't manage that expectation, and we don't want to be there when you're surprised.
Yeah. Ladies and gents, this was fantastic.
Facebookers
are ladies and gents, and this yes, and the Senate who's listening right now. Thank you all for joining me right now. Okay, quick, give us one liner about you and where to find you on social media.
Sure. Steve Gilman, co-founder and COO of Block Party. We're a Dallas-based firm, and you can find us at blockpartypresents.com.
Boom. Paul O'Brien, Media Tech Ventures, founder, all the usual stuff. SEO Brian on the internet, pretty easy to find that way.
He is not a SEO consultant, but
yeah.
Amanda Eakin, Sputnik ATX, venture-backed accelerator in Austin, and I do marketing.
Bob Metcalfe, professor of innovation at the University of Texas, and my personal Twitter is @Bob Metcalfe. Metcalfe has an E on the end, by the way. It's an honorary E.
And he's also on the Tim Ferriss show like a month ago, right?
On the what?
Tim Ferriss show?
Yes, I got interviewed by Tim Ferriss, but on May 3rd, I'm going to interview him.
Yeah. Where?
At Longhorn Startup Demo Day.
Oh, Demo Day.
And let's face
May
it, Tim Ferriss is lucky to get interviewed by this man.
But it's a bit of a pro-am.
Oh, okay.
Good. It's an honor just to be sitting next to the man. Martin Martinez. Martin, if you can't roll your R's in Facebook land. You can find me at Martin Martin, MartinMarten, both ways to say it. I'm the founder of A Player Media, do creative event production, also managing director for the Founder Institute here in Texas.
And I'm Joe Merrill with Sputnik ATX. No honorific E for me, but we do early stage accelerator program here in Austin, Texas.
Boom. And my name is Moby, the name I picked for myself. It's too long of a story. I'm not going to go into it. I'm the host of the Fire Show Podcast. I can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Fire Show Podcast. Everyone, thank you for joining us. We're at the Fun Conference, brought to you by Deloitte. And thank you, Entrepreneur Network. If you're watching right now, comment what you liked, what you didn't like. You can comment about me. It's fine. And thank you for watching. Goodbye. Clap. Let's just clap.